when you write a book, they don't tell you that you're going to spend 3 years writing it and then 4 years talking about it. And you're like, no, I'm done with the book. I want to go to new ideas. And I
Okay.
think what the book did was ignite a conversation that the architecture of work is just broken and it's not built for all the change and the fast pace of new innovation that we're seeing right now. And so, for example, some companies will say, come here and work here forever. Yeah, but your company might not be around forever, and maybe you're not developing me. And now I can see what other people are doing and how I can use my skills in new ways. So I'm going to make new choices. And that's interesting, that I'm helping so many leaders around the world, particularly in Portugal and Spain right now, Canada, Mexico, South America, US, really trying to face like this really hard world of work right now where it's hard to find people, it's hard to keep people. And there's a simple knee-jerk reaction a lot of leaders make. Well, it's that young generation, they're morally bankrupt, they're not, creative. And I'm thinking, no, that's definitely not the reason, but it's an easy target for you. And what I think is there's a lot of other factors that go into that we can talk about. Hi, my name is Steve Cadigan, and my entire life focus right now is helping leaders and organizations untangle this increasingly unpredictable, this increasingly challenging world of work. And I've spent most of my life in many organizations around the world, lived and worked in 4 different countries, and I've never seen so many changes happen at the same time. So, for example, many leaders today are grappling with an increase in employee turnover. People are just aren't staying in organizations as long as before. The rise in employee sort of disengagement. People are less excited about work than ever before. We also have a really interesting macro trend in which the need for new skills in organizations has never been as rapid as it is now. So we have a lot of new collisions happening. And you layer on top of that the fact that the world of career choices has never been bigger. I can see more today of where I can apply my skills, education, and experiences in more new places than ever before. Thanks to LinkedIn, Indeed, the internet, I can see how someone with my background, education, experiences in my life, how I can do so many things I never thought possible. When I started my career, it was simple: doctor, teacher, lawyer, policeman, fireman, or businessman. Now we can see 500 versions of what a businessman looks like and what it can do. There is more choices of ways you can work for yourself than not working for someone else than ever before. This podcast is another forum where people are earning a living just podcasting or driving an Uber or creating music content and selling it or creating videos. And I create online training videos, for example, as a side business. That's a revenue stream for me. So we have a demographic of workforce that is going through a radical transformation, how they're thinking about what I want to do, where I want to go. And businesses were not ready for this. Most businesses were built on you not having a lot of choice. You, the employee, you don't see all these possibilities. And that is causing big paralysis of concern. Now, the exciting thing here, Martin, is that my children, your children, the audience, the children of the audience have more choices of things to do professionally than ever before. And that's a beautiful thing. But as an owner of a business, that's a scary thing. I don't want my employees to see so many ways they can go work. And then there's a dark side to this too. And this is an area that I think is worthy of exploration, which is if you ask any salesperson, is it easier to sell a customer 3 choices or 500? They'll always say 3 choices. Well, what's happening in the world of work is that talent has so many choices of places where they could go. Okay, not everyone, but a lot of knowledge workers have a lot of choice now. More companies are comfortable hiring remotely, for example. So the pool of opportunity is bigger than it's ever been, and it's only growing. And so I'm worried I'm going to make the wrong choice. And you have more new industries being created than any time in history. So where should I go? What is the right industry for me? Should I go into cryptocurrency? Should I go into, Bitcoin? Should I go into, this new, revolutionary business and whatever it is that's coming out of nowhere? And so that's hard. And we see that struggle playing out in universities today around the world, where students are changing their major, more than any time in history. More students are choosing different majors, and the outcome is starting to be seen in things like the accounting industry, where for the first time in history that I've ever seen in my lifetime too, accountants have been declared an endangered species. And so what's happening? Well, the people who were using their math and science education experiences that were going into accounting now see I can do dozens of other roles, and they're pursuing that. And that's a problem for the accounting industry because the accounting industry never had to sell being an accountant. The accounting industry only had to go recruit accountants. You follow me? And so that's a real interesting pivot. The same thing in nursing. We're seeing more nurses leave a standard hospital schedule at a scale we've never seen before because many of them have found opportunities to be able to work at home or to become a travel nurse and go work somewhere else. Fewer students are enrolling in nursing schools. And so hospital systems are starting to have to realize, wow, we never had to sell being a nurse. Now we have to attract people to this profession, and we're not prepared for it. We didn't budget for that. And that is catching many organizations like the accounting industry and the hospital industry really unprepared. Let's start first with this notion of a more fluid workforce. And I think this is a big domain of concern for leaders. You know, if I ask any leader today, what's your biggest concern? Well, I can't find people as fast as I used to find them. And when I do, they don't stay. So, okay, so turnover's on the rise. And across every industry, across every geography of the world. So that's frustrating leaders because most paradigms of a successful business included the teams that win are the teams that stay together longer. It's just a fundamental, phenomenon. However, if we look at, let's just start with technology. And I use Silicon Valley as an example. I live in Silicon Valley. It's a garden of, a laboratory. It's interesting. It's not a perfect world. And there's a lot broken, but we have more companies here that are creating more value, more innovation, more creativity, more new intellectual property. We have more higher market cap organizations here than any geography in the world. And we also have the highest turnover. That's interesting. We have more people changing jobs here. We joke in Silicon Valley that, a year and a half is the equivalent of 5 years of employment under old standards. And so what is happening that if we look at Microsoft, Airbnb, we take a look at Zoom, we take a look at organizations like Google, Apple, Facebook, Twitter, the median tenure in all those organizations, and Tesla's included in this, is less than 4 years. So you cannot argue that the prerequisite to be successful is long tenure. Now, why is this not a disability for these technology companies? I would argue there's several factors. Number one, the business is always changing. The businesses and products you make are always changing. So I always need new people and new ideas. In fact, it's a deterrent and a disability for me if I have people that have only built it a certain way. I need new ideas and I need new perspectives. And yes, is that a strain on teamwork? Sure it is. And we can talk about that too. But let's also take a look at, if we have folks here who are familiar with North American sports, for example, college sports in the United States used to be that a student athlete would stay in the best schools for 4 years. Now, the best athletes stay for 1 year and then they go professional. And some who are phenomenal don't even go to college. They go right to professional if they're physically big enough to support them not getting hurt. And what we can learn from these universities that are playing the best sports in the world. Let's just take like the Duke universities, the UCLA, the USC, like the top football, basketball schools, is they've had to rethink how they create value because their best talent only stays for 1 year. So what do? They teach a simpler offense and they teach a simpler defense because they don't have 3 years to make you great. They have to accelerate onboarding and accelerate team building really fast. And they have to do it in a way that can get someone productive really quickly. Okay. And so, and it's working. It's working. So you can't say it's not possible. Let's also take the automobile industry. This is my favorite example. And I'm using these industries, Martin, to give confidence, to give you confidence that people staying a long time is not the only way. There are other ways. Let's take a look at the most over benchmark company in the world today, which is Tesla. Okay. Tesla's market cap value is worth more than Ford, General Motors, Mercedes, BMW, Toyota, and Honda combined. They're worth more. Now, they're run by a crazy man who has 3 part-time jobs, and their median tenure is 2.5 years. They're worth more than a dozen companies combined who've been doing it for 100 years. Why? They're worth more, the investors believe, because they're not stuck in 100 years of process and practice and bureaucracy and governance and let's just say binary thinking, to the point that they completely missed out the electric car revolution. They missed it. So now they're playing catch up. So I would argue that in today's business world, having a more fluid workforce can be an advantage. And we're starting to see that play out. Now, in a hospital, do I want my surgical team to be changing out? No, I don't. I want my surgical team to be steady. So this isn't, I'm not giving you an idea or a hypothesis for every business, because if we're putting someone on the moon, I can't have people coming and going on the team because lives are on the line. But for a lot of businesses that are in the area where it's changing quickly, maybe we've overvalued tenure and undervalued new people with new ideas and new ways of solving problems. And that, I think, is a good start. One of the really interesting facts, I believe, in the data today presents a really interesting question. When I approach leaders around the world and they say, what's your biggest problem? As I said earlier, they say, well, turnover. People are leaving faster. And I say, okay, well, we'll talk about in a second why people are leaving. Like, why are not people not staying a long time? Mm-hmm. But there's a bigger question than why. And this is the bigger question. And this is the one where I start to get leaders to move from acknowledgement to problem solving. And that is the question, do you think in the future people will stay in organizations longer? We're in a cycle where they're staying shorter and shorter. Do you think that will turn? Do you think it will return to people staying a career or their whole working life in 1 or 2 organizations? And when I ask that question, 100% of the answer is no. I do not think people in the future will stay longer. So I said, okay, so my next question is, so what are you doing if you accept that you believe people will not stay a long time? What are you doing about that? And most people, to be honest, right now are in the shock and awe and paralysis phase. Like, I don't know, because I've never seen this before. And that's why I like to give examples of businesses and organizations that have accepted that and said, how can we use this as an opportunity? And how can I see it differently than a disability? How can I see it as a potential advantage? Let me use one or 2 organizations that I'm familiar with in the fast food industry. Okay. So fast food industry has 2 big growth companies in the United States right now. One is called Chick-fil-A and one is called Chipotle. Okay. So chicken, fast food, and the other is Mexican fast food. What both companies say on their career website is they say, we know we're not your destination. We know you probably don't want to stay here a long time. We want to be the best part of your journey. We're fast food. We're a stepping stone for you to get somewhere else. So when you're here, we want to make those months or years great. And so you know what they do? They put pictures on their career website of alumni, of people who used to work there. And they're very honest about it. Like, we know we're fast food. We know we're probably not the place where everyone wants to be the rest of their career, but let's make this moment of your journey here enriching and full of new experiences. And that, I believe, is a great recruiting magnet for more people to come in, because they know when they leave, they'll be better. And that, I believe, gets to what I think the workforce is loyal to today. The workforce is less loyal to an organization and more loyal to learning. And in an era where the need for new skills has never been greater, in an era where universities are increasingly not able to prepare everyone with the most current technical skills because they don't know what they are. Witness AI wasn't even on the radar 5 years ago, and now it is the most important skill that many organizations say, oh, we need this. We need, I was laughing the other day with a friend because I saw an advertisement for a senior AI talent recruiter. I said, well, that person's going to be really not busy because there is no senior AI talent to recruit yet. But that is an interesting domain, which leads us to another really interesting and an important point. So if you're ready to embrace that people are not going to stay as long as they used to, it's time to start taking steps such as the Chipotles and the Chick-fil-A's and build to expect it. If you're a listener and you have someone who leaves your organization after 2 or 3 years, and they're the only person that knows how to do what they do, and you say, oh no, Susan's leaving. She's the only person that knows our ERP or our special process. Well, that's on you, because of course she's going to go. She has lots of choices. And so what have you done to archive her knowledge? What have you done to have other people train with her? Let me give you another example of a company. This is a European company that's done something really interesting to build what I call sort of an insurance policy for high turnover. Spotify, which is a very successful streaming business. When you can build a business and compete against Apple, the monster, successfully, good for you. And so what Spotify's CEO Daniel Ek did a number of years ago, this is pre-pandemic even, he looked at his people and practices and he said, my biggest problem is my young talent is leaving quickly. And what can I do about that? Can I stop the young people from leaving? And his answer was, no, I can't stop the young people from leaving. And they're not leaving because we're not a good company. They're not leaving because we don't treat them well or have a good culture or we don't pay them well. They're leaving because they have more choice. So what he did was required that you have to switch jobs at Spotify every 2 years. You cannot be in the same job more than 2 years. And so what he's doing is he's designing in knowledge sharing. So if Susan leaves, but Roberto did Susan's job last year, then Roberto can help us until we replace Susan. You see? And that, now, not every business can do that. Spotify can't, because they don't have hundreds of PhD, deep domain expertise roles. And then they found something really interesting, that it turns out that cognitive science, and I'm increasingly studying this now because I'm writing a new book about this, cognitive science is showing us that your brain is most stimulated and you're most likely to create and innovate when you're tackling something new, not doing the same thing again and again and again. Your brain gets soft. You get into sort of robot mode. And when you're doing something new, you get more innovation. And I love to talk about this, back to Silicon Valley. Why is it that the most creative geography in the world, arguably, okay, we can have a debate about this. Some people say, oh no, it's Berlin. What? Why is it that the most creative business domain in the world is Silicon Valley when more people are changing jobs faster than ever before? Because I think several reasons. One, in a world where people are changing jobs quickly, my network is really strong, because I've worked in a few companies and I know a great salesperson, I know a great product person, I know a great engineer, I know a great, lawyer, I know a great, product management. I can take my idea into a company really fast in a high network place. Plus, in a fast knowledge share economy, ideas can iterate really, really quickly. So I'm not here, Martin, to sell. I'm so excited that people are changing jobs quickly. I'm not. I recognize how hard that is, because many of us built our whole model of how we recruit, how we pay, how we record, how we, reward, retirement dollars. It's all around tenure. So we've not built enough models and architecture to feel satisfied and comfortable with this high degree of turnover. And what an interesting conversation I've had that started in the pandemic and has followed the pandemic is, I'll go to a leader and say, how's your business? And they'll say, oh, it's so hard. It's been really rough. People are leaving. It's hard to hire really good talent. It's hard to find the talent. I said, well, how's your revenue? And they said, oh, we just had 3 of the best years we've ever had. And I said, that's interesting. Why didn't you say first, things are great because revenue's up? Or why didn't you say, we've learned even when people are leaving quickly, we're able to grow revenue. You didn't say that because that's not how we've measured business success and job satisfaction or company satisfaction. And so that's why, one of the things that I spend a lot of time doing right now is let's come up with new measures of what a quality organization looks like in a higher fluid environment. One of the most interesting things, if we look at what the pandemic has served to the global society in general, is the fact that for the first time in all of our lifetimes, the way we were living changed. And one of my friends who's a doctor and a biologist shared a really interesting insight to me from the laws of biology. In the laws of biology, when an organ in your body stops functioning for an extended period of time, it loses the capacity to remember how to function. And as biological creatures, when we are put in a position, let's say, for example, we've never worked from home, and in the pandemic, now we're working from home, we see the world from a different way, so that when we're asked to return to the office or when the chance to go back to the office is presented to us, we don't see that working in the office the same way we did before. It's just a completely different. So some people call it the genie's out of the bottle. Now, the interesting conversation I have with many business leaders who are traditional business leaders, I'll call them, is that, Steve, we're more productive when my team is together. And I said, but you just told me your revenue increased when everyone was working from home. Are you sure? Maybe your comfort is greater when everyone's together. And what employees are saying, generally speaking, the ones who work from home during the pandemic, I'm more productive when I'm home. And what I've come to learn in talking to thousands of people who were in an office and work from home is what the employees at home are really saying is, my life is more productive when I work from home. I can be there when my children get home from school. I can schedule appointments that usually I could only do in the weekend during the week, and it's much more efficient. I have a more of a nuclear family. We're eating together more. That is creating greater joy. And don't we all work so we can have great lives? And so, businesses are now having to present an argument why being in the office is better. Okay. And some are succeeding and some are struggling and some are failing. And the truth is, for me, and I'm object, I don't care either way, but I do believe that if you are one of those people like, I want to work from home, appreciate that your leadership may not be comfortable because they've never proven over an extended period of time that's going to be good for the culture. It's going to be good for teamwork. It's going to be good for the shareholder and the consumer. You don't know because we're still in this sausage making phase, right? We're still learning. And that gets to, generally speaking, Martin, what is so hard about business right now. Whenever in the past we face something new, right? Like, let's say, we were talking off air about, Croatia and some of the challenges it's faced traditionally in terms of evolving its economy. Okay. What you do in those situations, say, well, what have other countries done or what have other companies done in this situation? Well, when we look around at the world, there was no pandemic we could go benchmark to before. We've never faced a moment in time where the entire workforce had to stop doing what they were doing and kids had to go home from school. We've never faced that before. Teachers have never had to teach on Zoom before. We've never faced that. And now we have this new artificial intelligence that's greater than any kind of technology impact that's ever been presented to business leaders. And so why is that frustrating? Because we have no benchmarks. And we all have to experiment. And most companies were built to be safe and consistent and not take risk. And that is very uncomfortable. And so I think the winners today are the people like the Teslas of the world or the Airbnbs. Like, we're going to try a different model, or companies that ask me, Steve, should my people be in the office? Should they be at home? Or should they be hybrid? And my answer is yes. And they say, no. Which one? And I said, yes. And they go, oh, all of them. I go, yes. You don't know. You have to learn. And I think you have an advantage if your employees see that you're not just going to say, this is the rule because. You're going to say, well, we don't know what's best for you. We don't know what's best for us. We don't know what's best for the consumers, our board of directors, our shareholders. So we're going to try and we're going to learn and we're going to make some mistakes and we're going to get smarter. And the reason I love working with technology companies is because in a software company, for example, the biggest part of your population are software engineers, and they're all about testing. Let's try this. Let's try this. What works? Okay, let's do this. And when you can take that mindset and apply it to culture, apply it to the architecture of work, then I think it becomes more meaningful. And these notions are really what led me to write my book, Work Quake, which I published. By the way, I finished the book in the middle of the pandemic, and I thought, oh my gosh, I had almost finished it before the pandemic, and I was editing, and the pandemic starts. I'm like, I can't publish a book on the future of work that has no reference to the pandemic. And I said, but there's a problem. I've been working on this 2 years already, and I don't want to work on it 2 more years. And I don't know how long the pandemic is going to be impacting the world of work. So I had to take some risk, and I had to take some guesses. And I'm very proud or very lucky to say every one of my predictions has come true around what is going to happen. And this high turnover didn't come because of the pandemic. It was already trending this way because the universe of choice grew, not because of the pandemic. But the whole psychology of the workforce, people seeing their lives differently. I don't want to commute long anymore. I don't want to work in an office anymore. That whole impact has been massive, and it's still playing out. We are not through it yet. But that's what I was trying to do with my book Workquake, which is present two distinct opportunities. One, the first part of the book is for employees, how to think differently about your career, how to think differently about learning and growth, and what organizations are ideal for you to choose in an economy that's changing quickly. And the second part is organizations. And one of the key points that I make for organizations is, we've been talking about, and over my career, I've been paid bonuses about keeping the people in, retain your people, because we believe they stay longer, we're going to be more effective. And now what we're finding is that the best performing organizations are not the ones that are trying to, keep everyone, but they're ones that are keeping the relationship even after the person leaves. Because if you know someone's going to go, let's be friends, let's stay in touch. And that is such a missed opportunity. When I go to hospitals around the world, or I go to schools around the world, and they're seeing high turnover of teachers, high turnover of nurses, I say, well, what are the people who left? Are you talking to them? And they say, no, they left us, and they talked to me like it was a divorce. Like, you don't think I'm sexy? Well, then you're not sexy. I don't like you because you quit. And you can't think about that in a much more open world. You have to really shift your thinking to, I need to care more about my people than just when they work for me. I need to care about them for the entirety of their careers. Because in a world where, here's an important point, in a world where more people are leaving your organization than ever, you have more ex-employees than you've ever had. And that is a pool that deserves your curation. It deserves your attention. One exercise that I found is really helpful in moving my clients from acknowledging the world is different to building a new model and setting goals and objectives around that model is the following. I was in London a few months ago with probably about 100 leaders, and the biggest problem there was there was almost anger around this problem, was people are not staying as long as anymore. And the first reason that they wanted to explore was that young generation, they're just disloyal and they don't care. And so we did an exercise, and it went something like this. And I would encourage you to do this with your teams, do this with your leadership teams. I went to them and I said, okay, we're going to do an exercise. I broke them into small groups, and I said, a law has just been passed in the UK. Okay. Parliament has just passed a law that says you cannot work in a company more than 3 years. It is forbidden. Okay. What are you going to do in your business tomorrow? And so you need to build a plan. You need to build a strategy. How are you going to do? Because now it's not a choice. Now it's the law. And so it was amazing to see them move from resistance and denial and anger and pain and stress and anxiety to action. Because now we can't fight it. It's the law. So I thought maybe one table would say, we're going to hire lawyers and we're going to fight the law. But no, they didn't do that. They said, okay, we are going to always be recruiting. Like, if we know that we have to recruit all the time. It's not just when someone leaves, it's all the time. Okay. And that's what the best college sports teams do, by the way, is they're recruiting all the time because you just know it's going to happen. So it's not a episodic event. It is ongoing. That's number one. Number two, onboard really, really quickly. So we need to probably simplify jobs because we have some jobs that take 2 years to teach somebody. We have to make that 2 months. So, and if we can't do that, we need to change the job because we don't have 2 years to invest in training and then only 1 year of delivery, right? So that is re-engineer jobs. Now, this is where the resistance flags come up because most budgets, most financial plans were built for a different model. Okay. And so we need, we may need some more people. We may need to change the roles and responsibilities because we need people to move from new to delivering value much quicker. Third thing, they said, we're going to start team building faster. Because I've worked in places, maybe you have too, Martin, where you're new to the team and they don't listen to you until you've been there like 2 years. Like we don't have time for that. So, how can you invite people in to make them feel welcome immediately? And that is very different. The third or the fourth thing is a culture of experimentation. What they said was really important is we can take these action steps, but we're going to need to experiment. And I think one of the coolest experience we're seeing right now and opening up the door to AI in our conversation is the biggest retailer in the United States right now is Walmart. And Walmart did something that blew my mind and many people's minds. They gave a generative AI tool to 50,000 salary workers. They have around the country, I think they have 50,000 salary workers. They gave everyone a generative AI tool on their phone and they said, here's a tool. We don't know how you can use it, but just try it out. Experiment with it, play with it. Maybe it's going to help you with recruiting. Maybe it's going to help you with understanding your inventory. Maybe it's going to help you with taking notes in a meeting. Like, we don't know. But why don't you go out there? And they have hundreds of experiments that have yielded incredible results. And now that I think is interesting that they're not prescribing how to use AI. Here is something we think there's possibilities here, but we don't know. You tell us, you're smarter than we are. And now they've expanded it to another 25,000. So 75,000 of their people are using it. And that, notion, back to this exercise that I was doing with this group, it's like when we started going down the path of creativity and experimentation, one group even came up with, I thought was a brilliant idea. They said, well, what we would do if people can only stay with you for 3 years is we would form a conglomerate and own multiple companies so that we could be adhering to the law, but move the best people to the other company that we owned. I'm like, yes, that's how you do it. And that's hacking. Every system has a hack, and that's hacking it. And now, we were moving from, feeling defensive and anxious and angry to excited. And what I asked them to do, and what I ask your listeners to do, is look at this challenge as an opportunity for us to create and innovate, And I think we've been given a gift here to build a better model of work. It's why I wrote my book, Workquake, because we have the opportunity of a lifetime. We're all seeing the world differently. Let's not go back to the way we were doing things. And this leads to, I think, my biggest concern about artificial intelligence. My biggest concern is the number one conversations we're having about AI are the wrong conversations. It's most of the conversations are, how can I do what I do today better with AI? No, that's not the right question. The right question is, if I'm doing what I am today, how can I create value differently? I want to grow my business. Maybe I ask AI, how do I grow my business? Not like, how can I do it and be, 5% more productive, 10% more productive? That is only 1% of what I think artificial intelligence can do for us, is make us more productive. I think it can give us enormous insights. I'll give you an example. I have many friends in the world of recruiting that have asked me, how can we do recruiting better with artificial intelligence? Like, how can we be more productive? And what do you think, Steve? And I said, that's the wrong question. The right question is, tell AI what you're solving with recruiting and ask AI, how would you solve it differently? How would you solve this problem differently? And so AI will first ask you, well, what is recruiting? Oh, recruiting is bringing new skills and talents into the company so that we can grow faster and be better than our competitors. And then AI might say, well, what are all the skills and abilities that you have in the company? And then you go, oh, we don't know all the skills and abilities of all our people. Oh my gosh, that's a untapped perspective we didn't think about. And that's the big problem that I think most organizations are making is they think the problem today is a recruiting problem. And I think the bigger problem is a skills awareness problem. And AI is an agent to help us recognize that and be more mindful of it, and that's where I get to around this conversation with AI is I really think that we're on a frontier that's a bigger cultural challenge than a technical challenge. Like, this is very scary for people because they're threatened by AI. And that's an unfortunate narrative that most companies or if you look in the media, it's all about job loss. AI is going to lead to millions of jobs getting lost. Well, that is just a depressing conversation. Why are we talking about that? Why don't we talk about how amazingly more interesting and impactful jobs can be with AI? How many new jobs are going to be created, right? Do you remember when the internet came out and it replaced travel agents? Because I can just book it myself. We talked about, oh, those poor travel agents. We didn't talk about the 10 times more new jobs that were created around travel and websites and travel booking and all kinds of new careers and new industries. We talked about, and the rub is the travel agents didn't get those jobs, you know? And so that's sort of, where we are with AI is it is not something we've ever seen before. We don't know how to use it. Usually it's technology plug and play. And that's why I love the example of Walmart. They're saying, hey, here's this thing. We really don't know what the opportunity is, but we think it's great. You go play around with it and you tell us. And that's coming from a very, very conservative, mindset company, delivering, shocking value. And that just, when you do that to people, I think it frees them and gets them more excited about what's possible and what's there. But this truly is a moment where, if you're using, here's last point on AI, and then we can change the thread of the conversation. If your first application of AI is to eliminate people in your company, eliminate jobs, how is that? Just play that out a little bit. How is that going to go? Is it going to be easier for you to recruit? Oh, yeah, I want to go for the company that's saving money by cutting jobs with AI. Really? That's not a company that I want to go to. I want to go to a company that's using AI so I can solve really interesting problems and have a really, really impactful career. That's where I want to go to. But that's what we're seeing. The first use cases are, oh, look, we cut 400 customer service jobs. Really? That's what you're celebrating? I think it's a miss. And we need to have more, higher level conversations around this. And the very last point I'll make on AI is, listen, when the founders are as terrified, as excited as they are about their product, that makes me nervous. The creators of AI they're scared. They're really nervous about the ethical implications around where this could go. And here we are, everyone's running ahead. Let's deploy AI. Really? You got to think it through. And I think we need to be responsible, and we need to have what I call AI ethics committees. Almost like, how on food we have a label, of nutrition label, like calories, carbohydrates, fats, sugars, and so forth. We should have a AI ethics label on every project we have. What's the impact to people? What's the impact to the culture? What's the impact to job creation? What's the impact to the environment if we move forward with this project? And that's something I think that would really be helpful for us. As we get to the point where we're starting to wrap up our conversation, one of the things I want to speak to, one of the demographics I really want to call out is one that I spend a lot of time working with right now, and that is the entrepreneur community. And one of the things that's very exciting for me that I learned over the course of my career is building a culture is so much more exciting and challenging and fun, and a little bit easier than changing a culture. And all of you who are listeners and entrepreneurs, if you haven't thought about your culture, you're already building your culture. What you wear, who you share information with, you're already making decisions and actions that are going to govern the culture that you're building. And I think what I love to do is help leaders think about the intentionality of that. Like, you don't have to. Culture is not writing a poster that says this is what our culture is. It's really, how do you want to live and breathe, and how do you think about creating something amazing, right? And like, we're only living once here, so let's make best use of our time and build something really truly amazing. And what I learned through my LinkedIn experience, and I share this with an incubator that I work with called the Unicorn Factory in Lisbon, with some of the greatest entrepreneurs around across Europe, and also we get some from other parts of the world, is, if you build a great culture, great people will find you, and you won't have to go find them. And that's, how I beat fighting Google, Apple, Facebook, Twitter in the, mid 2000s when we're growing LinkedIn, and I couldn't pay them, my people, more than those companies. I couldn't offer beautiful buildings. I couldn't have great benefits, but I offered the greatest capacity for them to learn and do amazing work, and also work on something that mattered, helping people find their dream jobs. So I'm a big believer in investing the time to ask a question. Why does anyone want to work for you? Why? Because there's more choices of where to work anywhere in the world. If you answer that question, that's your culture. Why does anyone want to work for you? Because that question is the question when we were building LinkedIn that changed the game for us. We can't pay more. We don't have the budget. We don't have the revenue. Google makes more money in a day than we make in a year. How are we going to hire those people? Because what the problem we're solving matters, and this will be the greatest learning and growth experience of your career. So you need to invest that time in there. It's not frivolous. It's not silly. It's not like HR stuff. It's the most important thing you can do to take the pressure off of finding great, great people. And at the end of the day, I think that's super, super important. Well, listen, it has been an absolute pleasure to have a conversation with you today. My name again is Steve Cadigan. I'm based in California, but I usually am on an airplane going somewhere. I spend a fair amount of time in Lisbon and Madrid working with a lot of entrepreneurs. If you'd like to reach me, stevecadigan.com. I also have quite an interesting following. I think I may be one of the oldest TikTokers out there. I have hundreds of thousands of followers and millions of likes. Please, if you're looking for humor to depressurize your day, I have a lot of funny stories there that are good lessons from my career. But you can also find me on LinkedIn. I hear it's a pretty good website. But thank you so much for having me on the show today.